Okay, we're at 1:30. Let's get this show on the road. After our wonderful lunch, no sleeping now, you hear? No afternoon, no after lunch naps here. Got some great talks coming up. First of all, we have, after a set of talks, we're having a poster session and then breakout sessions. More information on that later. As you can see up there, community support volunteers for the afternoon are Caleb Derven and Anne-Marie Mesco from 1 to 3. They are up in their usual place with their referee zebra stripe lanyards. From 3 to the end of the session today is going to be Natasha Allen and Thomas Dowling. The online community support volunteer is Mike Giarlo, MJ Giarlo on Slack from 1 to 3 p.m. Then Michelle S. Navarro on Slack from 3 p.m. to end of day. So without any further ado, our first talk for this afternoon, 20-minute talk from Sarah Smulligan, Binky Lush, I believe, yes. Ensuring institutional repository accessibility, integrating automated accessibility checks, and remediation workflows.
All right, can everybody hear me? Perfect. All right, so my name is Sarah Smulligan. I'm one of the Ruby on Rails developers with Penn State University Libraries. I will not repeat that title because that is quite a mouthful and a tongue twister, but we're going to be talking about how to make institutional repository PDFs accessible. So for a little bit of context, we're going to be talking about ScholarSphere. So that is the institutional repository we use at Penn State. It is a homegrown application that's a little bit of blacklight for the discovery piece, but it's also a lot of custom code to actually have the deposit process for the researchers. We get about 3,000 works a year deposited to ScholarSphere. So as you can imagine, with the upcoming Department of Justice requirements, I'm sure everyone is aware of, making all of those accessible is going to be quite an undertaking. And all of that has to be done by April of 2026. So this talk specifically, I'll be focusing on what we're doing for new works that are deposited. Since it is an institutional archive, we do get the exception we don't have to go back and make everything that has ever been put into ScholarSphere automatically accessible. I'll also be focusing specifically on PDFs. That's what we wanted to focus for this block of work, as there's a lot more resources for PDF accessibility at this time. So little roadmap. I'm going to talk about how we're using Adobe PDF Accessibility Checker to help meet these requirements, why we chose Adobe PDF, and then just some additional considerations, kind of where we're at now, and some things that have popped up along the way. All right, so I'm going to try to do a live demo. This is the picture of my pets in case it all goes wrong, so at least there's something positive that came out of it. All right, so this is inside ScholarSphere, inside the user deposit process. These first 3 steps are kind of all the different metadata steps. So now I'm going to work through kind of what a user would see in this new workflow. Hopefully this part works as well. Checked it before. There we go. So here's just a test file uploaded. Come to the review, and perfect. So it's still processing. This was something we added with the accessibility result and report. And as you can see, it actually processes pretty quickly. And unfortunately, this is pretty typical, that only 9 out of 32 criteria passed. So our hope is a user will see this, feel a little bit motivated to click the view report and figure out what went right and what went wrong. We did start with what went right, trying to start with that positive encouragement, build them up a little bit. And then we have the list of everything that went wrong. These are the things that specifically failed the checker. Sometimes there's a couple things that need manual review. It just means Adobe couldn't get a clear answer one way or the other. But for everything that went wrong, we're also providing them with tips for remediation. So Adobe has a really helpful little interface here that tells them feedback of how they can fix whatever the rule was. So the hope is that people will see that, do some manual intervention on their own, especially because all of our researchers at Penn State have been made aware of this upcoming policy, and it is part of Penn State policy at this point. So then they can come down and either request accessibility remediation. So that's where their work gets saved as a draft, and it'll get prioritized for accessibility review, and our team will help them with it, or they can just publish. Now, if they do this, they do still have to, in addition to some other things, click a box that acknowledges either it meets the requirements or they will actively work with curators to help get it into the place where it will meet the requirements. So they have either of those options. Now, I'm in production, so I'm not going to click either because QA requires being behind Penn State's VPN. So we're going to pretend I clicked on one of those. But we have a couple other places where they can go back and see this feedback. If they ever backtrack to files, or if they've uploaded multiple files, we have some just guidance for remediation assistance on that, as well as the summary table. And then if we save and exit, they can come here to work settings, and it has that same table, just a little bit more abbreviated. So again, we're trying to put this in a couple different places, get it in front of researchers, and help them out. And there's also, so that's the user piece of it. Once all of that is done, our curation team can see these buttons. I'm logged in as an admin, so I can still see these buttons, where the curation team can contact the accessibility team. And yes, we're okay with that. And then let them know it creates a ticket in Lib Answers. So the accessibility team knows when it's time to review. And then, for example, so here's the queue we have for that. And for example, if I scroll a little further, here's one that's marked as priority. That just means that person has requested remediation specifically, versus all of these are the other things that go through the workflow. So that's kind of the whole workflow. So let's talk about how it all works and what tools we're using to make all that happen. Oh, and these are just screenshots as reference, and in case the demo failed. Okay, so we were prepared. So when a file gets uploaded to ScholarSphere, and this has always been the case, it gets saved to an AWS S3 bucket. The new part of it is it also triggers a Sidekick job that'll pull down a file into a temporary directory and send it up using the Adobe PDF Accessibility Checker API. So it does get stored up with Adobe for just a little bit of time. However, as soon as we get a response from Adobe, we then send up a second call, and that removes the file. So that's just kind of a good reference to let researchers know it will go up there for a little bit, but we are pulling it back down. Your research won't be living with Adobe. And then once we have that result, it comes back as a really nicely formatted JSON, and we save that result to a new model where we can process what succeeded and what failed. On the UI side, we have that user visible table that'll show the result as processing. Again, we just really want to try to capture the user's attention, let them know something else is coming. We want them to stay on that page. We don't want them to just blow through it. And that's part of why we used Action Cable to provide the live updates. So it is pretty much instantaneous. As you saw, it's a pretty quick process. But Action Cable gets us there a little bit faster than some of the older methods that would be polling maybe every 3 to 5 seconds. When a researcher is ready to be done with a deposit, that 5 seconds could make a difference. So then from there, our report showing the failures and the remediation tips is mostly hard-coded. We're just going back to that model and pulling out what succeeded and failed, and we have that mapped up to the links for the tips. And so final step, like I said, the user can either request remediation or publish. The benefits of remediation, as I said before, it does set it as a priority. We have an integration with Airtable. That's what our curators use to keep track of where everything is at in the curation process. And requesting adds an additional label to Airtable that they've requested, so curators know to prioritize. Because it shows the researcher is just open to engagement, that they are on board and they're okay with maybe working on this a little bit longer. But the other benefit is also it just keeps it to one version. Because if they just go ahead and publish, we have to make that accessible. It's going to end up with a second version, and some people really want to avoid that. So this helps with that process, and hopefully is a little bit more encouragement for them. So then, as I said, then the user is pretty much done. It moves on to the curation team. They do an initial review because we want to try to avoid duplication. Our accessibility team is going to have enough work as it is. We don't want them trying to make something accessible just to realize it wasn't actually the right file, or it's got some personally identifiable information, most commonly signatures. So we just have to scrap that file and redo the whole thing anyway. So once it is, curation team's kind of given it that check over, it moves on using that libanswers API integration button that I showed before. They'll contact the accessibility remediation team, and they're the ones who do then the remaining manual work. So while that report that I showed before is beneficial for the users, it's also really beneficial for the remediation team. They kind of get a little cheat sheet. They'll still human review some of those things that passed. As we've discussed a lot today, AI sometimes can be a little unreliable. So they'll still check it, but it gives them, they know where they need to focus on and where they can kind of just do a quick review. So they'll upload a new version of the file. That version will be the published version, whether it means the V1 if it was requested, or a V2. Since it's internal to Penn State, there are not any copyright issues since it's specifically for accessibility changes. So for choosing Adobe PDF, we did look at a lot of different options. One was Site Improve, since we actually already use that for a lot of our websites. We also looked at Census Access, and then Vera PDF CLI were the main ones that we considered. However, Adobe PDF Checker really just had the best result. It's a really clean JSON. It was really easy to parse out, and it was also fairly reliable. When we tested, I think it was Vera PDF, just didn't quite have the same results. It did hallucinate a little bit more. Plus bonus, it comes at the best price, which is free. We get 500 full document checks a month on the free version. As a frame of context, obviously Penn State's a very large university. We only had 55 last month. So we are still well within the marker of the free package. So kind of where are we at now? Since we implemented this in mid-December of 2024, as of the end of February, we've had 184 total works deposited, 19 of which have had remediation requested. We are hoping that that will continue to improve as this feature's been out a little bit longer. People hopefully start noticing that extra button that's there. And then we also added, as I mentioned before, this all applies to new PDFs. We also added in a request accessible version button to all of our existing, everything in our repository, whether it's a PDF, a PowerPoint, any of our works, any file we have has this button associated with it, and it will send it to the accessibility remediation team, and they'll be able to get them the accessible version of that document. While we'd love to make everything accessible just right off the bat, we do have to balance out man hours versus being able to provide that as a service. So that was kind of our best in between. We're also looking at automating the remediation process itself. Adobe does have a PDF tagger, auto tagger, which typically auto tagging is about 80% of remediation. So that is something we did explore. However, that does come with a cost. Unfortunately, right now, it's a fairly high cost for the volume of things that we're working through. We are closely following, though, Ohio State University is working on their own auto remediator. They are still using that Adobe Auto Tagger, so it would still have a cost associated with it. But they're also using an AI alt text generator. So it kind of covers, of that remaining 20%, covers a little bit more of it as well. So it gets you a little further. That work is currently in beta. We are keeping an eye on it very closely. Their initial stuff did look really promising. Again, it's just the cost piece of it. We're hoping that they'll be able to negotiate maybe like a Big 10 rate, or maybe, you know, for people at other universities being able to kind of group together. So that's kind of where we're looking at for the future here. And that is pretty much all I have. So I just wanted to take a minute and just thank all of the other people who worked on this project as well. It was a really strong group effort over a considerable amount of time here. Yeah, so that's everything.
And I believe we actually may have time for questions.
Okay, does anybody have a question?
No questions.
Oh.
Okay, and moving right along.
Oh, I think we did have one.
One question up there. Oh, run.
Well, just waiting. If anyone has any further questions, also you can always like put it on Slack, and myself and the rest of my team are happy to answer them.
Hi, I'm Kim from Princeton. You mentioned that you communicated out with your users that this was going to be a mandatory process and that everybody was on board with it. I'd love to know what types of communication you used, and if you also offered training or any opportunities for documentation before even they submit to help with the process you were talking about.
Yeah, so that actually is a great Binky question. Sorry, Binky is my manager. She's here as well. If someone could run a mic over to her. She had more to do with the policy side of it.
Sorry to make you run all the way up here. Yeah, that's a great question. That has been done more at the central level, so not necessarily through the libraries, but the communication about the Title II guidelines have been going out from our central IT service, from our provost, and from academic leadership. But with this, we knew that the reality was that once a researcher is finished with their research, they just want to get it into the repository. And so we're trying to make that provide awareness of the accessibility requirements, but also make it easy for them to get their research in, and then our remediation team is taking care of the rest at this point. So.
Okay.
Anybody else? Oh. Yes. Oh, back up.
You mentioned a remediation team. I would like to know more about the formation and resourcing and training of this remediation team.
Yes, so we are really fortunate within the libraries. We do have a specific team that just focuses on accessibility, and they are handling most of the manual remediation for this process. They actually just got 2 new part-time team members because of the sheer volume that they're going to be dealing with. But on that same token, we also acknowledge, even with all of that, they're not going to be able to do it all manually, which is why we're looking forward towards auto remediation process as well.
Please ask. We're actually running ahead of schedule, so. Yeah. Here, hold on.
What's your feeling about how remediated the remediated PDFs really are? I mean, do you have people who go through and actually see what the remediation process has done, as opposed to just running it through one of these checkers?
Yeah, so when we've checked the checker. So to be clear, the process that we currently have implemented doesn't do any auto remediation at this point. It's just doing a check of, does it meet these requirements? Does it not meet these requirements? Just to help, again, encourage the researchers to help do their own remediation, but then also give our accessibility team a little bit of a leg up and a little bit of a head start for their process. That has been very reliable. That was why we went with Adobe PDF, actually. We checked a lot of results and a lot of different checkers. For the actual things we've looked into but not yet implemented for auto remediation, they've been surprisingly good. Again, I think it's going to be one of those things that never hurts to have a human check on it, but they've done a pretty good job in general, especially the work Ohio State's been doing that we've been, again, following very closely.
Hi, Natasha from U of M. I just wanted to know, are you doing any sort of evaluations of like the target user population? Can you talk a little bit more about that at all?
I don't think we have done that specifically at this point. And I'm looking to Binky to correct me if I'm wrong on that. I mean, it's really Scholarsphere for every single person who does any sort of research at Penn State or has an affiliation with Penn State. So it's quite a broad base.
We do most of our testing. We have not done a lot of end user testing, but as part of our remediation and testing process through development of all of our applications, we have someone from our central IT accessibility group, and so most of our testing is on using a screen reader. But we do have someone test all of our applications and spot check our PDFs, and we do manual we have been doing manual review of all of our PDFs that we have checked as well.
Forgive my ignorance about PDF tools, but is the remediation team able to do everything just from the submitted PDF, or are there cases where you would need the originals in other formats to do the remediation properly?
My understanding, and again, I'm looking to Binky and correct me if I'm wrong, is that yes, they're able to do most of it. There's a couple different issues that I think they do require the user engagement, which is why we make them check that box, that they will comply with it. I think that's specifically around like color contrast, something that's actually changing content versus adding tags or something like that.
Yeah, and you're asking about like the source prior to its becoming a PDF. To date, we haven't. I mean, that's certainly way easier to make that original document accessible, but I don't know of any cases where we've had to do that. But but right now we're still not doing auto remediation. We've been playing around with Abby Fine Reader that's been helping us, but there's a lot of manual work that just has to be done. We're also looking at some other different tools and how we might be using those for more automated PDFs, because Scholarsphere isn't our only application that's going to be needing something like this, but it was kind of our proof of concept.
Very good. Let's give another round of applause for the speaker. Okay, next up will be Vicky Karasic. My apologies if that's not how you pronounce your name. Denzel Phillips and Beck Davis, who will be speaking on "We Fixed Monitoring, so can you." No, they did not.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're here from the Princeton University Library IT operations team to talk to you about how we solve monitoring, but we actually didn't, and how you can too. Our slides are posted on the conference website, and if you want to follow along, you can scan the QR code down at the bottom, or use our bit.ly link, which is bit.ly/PUL monitoring-C4L-2025. And with that, we will introduce ourselves. I'm Vicki Karasik. I'm a DevOps engineer. I help support library applications and work on automating and monitoring our virtual infrastructure. And I will pass it to Denzel Phillips, who's a first-time presenter.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me? Oh, yeah, perfect. I'm Denzel Phillips. I'm also working at the library IT ops team. Very nervous, and this is also my first time. I also work with the library infrastructure, virtual infrastructure, with monitoring and automating our virtual infrastructure. Thank you, and I'll pass it over to Beck.
Hello again, I'm Beck Davis, and I am a fellow with our operations team, doing DevOps work, supporting our developers and their applications.
All right, so to start us off, we have a quote here from our colleague, Francis Kayua, that reads, "In the digital landscape, the bits are governed by two distinct yet equally vital factions, the software developers who craft code and the operations engineers who keep the servers from bursting into flames. They have collaborated to solve monitoring for PUL. These are their stories." So, all that to say that back in 2022, a group of PUL developers and operations engineers led a Code4Lib workshop that focused on coming up with a monitoring selection framework, which we then based our work on that we're going to talk to you about today. So in a way, we thank the whole Code4Lib community for supporting us through this monitoring journey. This is a story of DevOps collaboration. Monitoring isn't a solution for one person or one team. It's everyone having the same understanding of what we're monitoring and how we're doing that. So we will walk you through our monitoring journey. Our first steps were that we surveyed the landscape. We looked at tools that we had heard about and worked with and researched. Then we started an epic on GitHub to spell out the big picture goal of what we wanted to accomplish, and then we created individual tickets for the work. We then came up with acceptance criteria in collaboration with our developers for what we wanted the platform to have and what we wanted it to be able to do for us. And then we did testing with the tools listed here, which we'll go into more detail about in a minute. And then we socialized to our IT team and got feedback. And so again, the operations team collaborated with the developer teams to figure out what monitoring means for our IT team and our infrastructure. We came up with acceptance criteria for what we wanted our solution to be, or the attributes, and what we wanted the platform to be able to do for us, or the capabilities. And these were some highlights. So for attributes, we wanted a mature, well-documented, affordable, open source system, among the other attributes listed here. And for capabilities, we wanted to monitor things like disk usage, web application responses, physical and cloud resources, among the other capabilities listed here. So after coming up with these criteria, the operations team started testing these tools that we researched, and these are the different tools that you can see here. And we divided these up amongst team members, and our testing basically looked like spinning up virtual machines, installing the applications, testing authentication, adding users, talking to vendors and other folks on campus who have used these tools. And then we developed a scale of 1 to 5, 1 meeting most of our acceptance criteria and 5 meeting the least. And we narrowed it down to 2 candidates, which were CheckMK and Zabbix. And then we called a meeting with the developer teams to pitch and showcase how these 2 products met our acceptance criteria, and we invited them to give feedback. Then we took this feedback, met as an operations team to make the final choice, which for us ended up being CheckMK. And one of our big goals here was that we wanted to collaborate with the developers on our final choice of platform. And now I will turn it over to Denzel, who's going to talk about automation.
All right, as Vicki said, there was a lot of collaboration between the 2 teams, both the operations. All right, can you hear me now? Is that better? Thank you very much. So as Vicki said, there was a lot of collaboration between the 2 teams, both operations and development teams. So what we had to do was there was a lot of streamlining of the processes for installation, right? We had to create a series of Ansible playbooks to manage these configurations for CheckMK, all of which are available on our GitHub repository under the Princeton Ansible repo. So we settled on 3 playbooks. The first playbook was to configure our host, which is just basically to ensure that the environment was properly set up for the agents. Next, we then deployed the agent. Deploying the agent just means making sure that at each host, that is, was equipped with the required monitoring agent. We then finally deployed the local checks on each host, enabling us to customize the monitoring based on the unique requirements for each host. We then had to determine the steps for this installation of CheckMK. And in order to do that, we had 3 ways of doing it, well, 2 ways actually. What Francis Kiyua, our colleague, always says is the hard way of doing things, and then there's the easy way. So the hard way was basically just following the instructions on CheckMK, and they actually have a pretty neat link for YouTube videos that you can watch and follow those instructions. And we basically just installed the CheckMK agent on our host and adjusted our rules on the CheckMK platform once the VMs were active. We then transitioned over to an automated system using Ansible. We utilized Ansible, that is, to install the dependencies, packages, and the required version of CheckMK on the Linux machine system, all without any manual intervention. After installation of CheckMK, we configured our monitoring rules and services, and also we had some additional playbooks which we had to work with. We deployed our local check custom scripts with playbooks to monitor our specific metrics and services unique to our infrastructure. The last step was our ongoing maintenance, which basically involved just adding hosts. We tweaked a couple of rules and services, and we also had to refine our Slack alerting messages that we received. Then we moved on to the next phase of our monitoring task, which was backups and restore. As you can see there, we have the backup screen, and basically we discovered that the backup and restore features for CheckMK were very straightforward. For both operations and development team, we had an efficient backup features. Basically what this entails is you can do your backups at any time, or you could do it once after every configuration change. We also worked on CheckMK's restore feature, and there's 2 features, one that's a full restore or a partial restore. So we settled on the partial restore, which basically just means you keep the system running and you only work on your targeted critical areas that needs fixes. The developer teams were also able to confirm that the monitoring and alerting rules, which we enabled or we set rules for, were stored after each partial restore function was initiated. And with that said, I'll pass it over to my colleague Beck. Thank you.
So CheckMK is, you can try it for free. It's scalable. We recommend you try it. At least 2 of our IT folks have tried it. James, one of our developers, said it's very straightforward when you follow the instructions. He uses it at home. He still uses it at home. And Francis uses it to monitor the Code4Lib.social.mastodon. He says it's everything it says on the tin. And if you've done monitoring before, it looks well thought out. We recommend you try the free version. It's a good tool. We went with the paid version because we didn't want to have to be experts. We wanted to pay the experts to answer our questions. This is a section from our dashboard. But most importantly, we wanted this to be a collaboration with our developers and let them, to enable them to be able to make changes in the monitoring platform rather than having to rely on us to do that, and to let them have ownership over monitoring their applications. So far, that has gone very, very well. They are learning things well before our operations team, and it's awesome. And we would like to thank all of our PUL IT colleagues and our pets and CheckMK, who has given us a bunch of swag. You can reach out to one of us to get some on a first come, first served basis. If you have any questions, you can email us. And happy. Our friend's gonna love that you all love his cat. Happy monitoring.
Great, thank you. Any questions? Oh, come on, people. Must be some questions. Oh, yes.
Thank you. Emily Ann from University of Buffalo here, and we use Zabbix for monitoring, and I'm just curious if there was anything that jumped out at you folks kind of making that final decision?
Yeah, like I said, that was those were our final contenders, and I think we liked that CheckMK was open source first of all, and the documentation was really good. Like it did everything that it said it was going to do, and it was just very easy for us. It worked with Ansible. Like we were able to use the tools we generally use on our team. And yeah, it was close. Like they do very similar things, but we did like CheckMK for those reasons. I think Francis wants to add.
The showstopper for us was role-based access control. Zabbix seemed to try to tell us that we will sell you additional packages in order for you to do something that we felt should be built in. Out of the box, CheckMK does role-based access control without having to say, pay us some money and you'll get access to SAML or airbag.
Anyone else? Going once. Twice. No questions. All right. Thank you very much again. Those of you paying attention on Slack will know already that unfortunately Devin Murphy's talk on metadata remediation will not be taking place due to an unfortunate health incident from which she is recovering. They are recovering. I am very sorry. Moving right along, we have Michelle. I'm going to pronounce it the way that it would be pronounced in Polish. I apologize, Janowiecki, but that's probably not how you pronounce it. Building my own tools, creating reusable Python scripts for my most common spreadsheet tasks.
Hey everyone, can you hear me? The name pronunciation was good. We say it both ways. 95% though, Janowiecki, to make it easier on others. Let's see. Ooh, slideshow. All right, thank you so much for having me. This is building my own tools, creating reusable Python scripts for my most common spreadsheet tasks. And it's essentially about me making a repo with reusable Python scripts and as like a beginner intermediate coder. So about me, I am a metadata librarian at Johns Hopkins Sheridan Libraries. My main focus is on digital collections and like bulk metadata projects. So I do a lot of ingest and cleanup work via APIs. Some APIs I've worked with include Islandora, DSpace, ArchiveSpace, and more. So all of this means a lot of spreadsheets. So some of my common spreadsheet tasks, I'm not going to read the complete list, but pretty much adding, deleting, doing rejects on values, combining spreadsheets together, splitting spreadsheets apart. Anything that you could do really with a spreadsheet, I end up doing in my day-to-day tasks. So the history of this project. In 2018, I created this repository metadata editing Python. And for those of you that don't want to download slides, if you want to look at the repo, just type in my last name in that and it will come right up. As a repository in GitHub to store and share my metadata related Python scripts. And 2018 was the year I learned Python. So it's been with me since the very beginning, but I didn't really have a lot of intentionality about the long-term use of this repo. Essentially, any Python script that was just about metadata or just using spreadsheets ended up in here. And if you're thinking about Python scripts being tools that are useful to you, this is what my repo looked like by 2020. So just kind of cluttered and a lot of repeats of the same sort of tools, and like no one had ever organized it ever. So sometime in 2020, 2021, it's hard to say when I was looking through my GitHub commits, I realized that I really didn't need to write a brand new script every time I had like a spreadsheet related Python problem. So if we go back to like a gardening metaphor, I don't really need a new shovel every time I want to garden, because then you end up with 30 shovels. I really was hoping to make this repo become a toolbox where I had Python scripts for common spreadsheet tasks. So I wanted each script to do like one discrete thing and to not really have any variables like file names or column names baked in to the script. And I wanted the results for each script to kind of be along the same page so I knew kind of what I was getting without having to like remind myself of the entire script every time. And I wanted the scripts to be easy to find and understand. And looking at my messy repository when I gradually began this process, there was a lot of issues. I couldn't find anything, nothing was really documented, and all my scripts had like different variable names for doing the same things, which made it hard to like run the scripts repeatedly without having to relearn them. So bad findability, the main issue was there was like too many scripts. There was like at one point 30 plus scripts in a single folder. And over time, I've been like weeding those out. This has been like a very organic process, which is why I'm talking about like 2021 through today. I have been working and improving this repository gradually. And also over time, like single-use scripts would sneak in there, like subject data.py. Like, what does that do? I don't know. And just making sure that I deleted those and really only kept scripts that were reusable. And then I also like did file organization and tried to organize it that way. Like if I have a CSV or a spreadsheet that I want to edit, I can really quickly go to the right folder. And I also kind of tried to give myself some rules. So don't have more than like 10 Python scripts per folder, or else I couldn't really find anything. And then specialized one-time metadata scripts, especially to do with like APIs that are specific to our institution, should go in project repositories. I really don't have anything at all about APIs in here. It's just spreadsheets. And then just triple check that I don't already have the script before writing a new one. So some other issues that made findability hard is like I had all of these naming conventions that none of them were normalized, and they didn't tell you what the script is about. So I came up with a pattern that is like action taken in file type, and I try to like have a list internal to my brain, I should probably write them down, of normalized terms commonly used. That way I could really find what I was looking for. Bad documentation was also an issue. I did at one point try README, where I had a list of all the scripts and what they did. I never updated it. GitHub Wiki was the same problem. So I finally decided like a month ago to add doc strings to each script. I'm still adding them in. I don't know if this is how you're supposed to use doc strings, so please tell me, but like I just added a description at the top of what it did. So here's an example. Oh, cool, thanks. There's also like inconsistent script norms. So I used argparse, I'll talk about that a little more if you're not familiar. And I wasn't using like the same arguments to enter things into the terminal. Like Right now, I have it set so every time you enter a file name, it's like -F is like what you enter in the terminal before you enter the file name. It used to not be like that. So it's good now to have some normalization. And then I also had wonky data input and output issues. So the major fixes for me were PyCharm Community Edition. It caught a lot of typos that I never noticed, some logical errors, PEP8 style problems, and then a find and replace across projects is really great. I normalized those arg parse and variable names, and I came up with like a naming pattern for the new CSVs my scripts create. Wonky data input outputs. This I'm still learning. Whenever I get like encoding errors, I want to rip my hair out. But essentially, when in doubt, D-type equals strings for pandas, and CSV quote all helps a lot. And it also helps a lot to save everything as text with quotes in LibreOffice Calc is my recommendation. So new and improved. My shed is organized. Using my scripts. So I have quite a lot of scripts. Oh no, formatting, but I'm just gonna go over like 5. I'm not gonna go over the specific like line by line code, just kind of an idea of like what my scripts do. So I have combined multiple CSVs. You have multiple CSVs, you chuck them in a folder somewhere, and then in the terminal, you run the script and you tell it where the folder is, it combines it for you. Then count values in CSV column lists. So if like I have an export from like dspace and I want to know how many subjects each item has, I would run this script, tell it the file, tell it what I want it to count and what the identifying column is, and it will tell me the count of things. Explode and pivot CSV by identifier. This is my favorite script ever, honestly. So a lot of times I'm like normalizing names or subjects, and if the export is like this, where there's a bunch combined, that makes it hard to do. So this essentially pivots and explodes. And you can look that up. It's like, I think there's spreadsheet terms that like you might be familiar with if you're an Excel super user. And kind of list them out for me and then aggregate all the IDs. And again, I just have it where you can type in the file name, you can type in the columns that are relevant, and what the delimiter is between the column where you have your list. So yeah, and then get status of all identifiers and 2 CSVs. Every once in a while, I will not be sure if a CSV that I'm like updating in a repository actually includes all the relevant IDs. So this script will tell me like where the IDs are, if they're in both sheets, only one CSV, and which one it is. And again, trying not to have anything baked in, you always enter the file names. So the first file name, the second file name, and then like what identifier it's looking at. This is another great script. I don't actually ever name CSVs awesome.csv, but for the demo I did. And essentially, if I had like a CSV with a ton of rows and I wanted to update something via API, but I didn't want the script to run all night, I'd rather do it in batches. This will evenly divide it as best it can into batches for you. And then like the least amount of rows will be at the last one, if that makes any sense. This, I'm glad I've never had to rewrite because I'm not great with math. So here's the script. And then how I actually use these in real life is like, I might run multiple scripts against one CSV. And then I might make copies of the script in like the Scratch folder, make edits for like the specific needs of that particular CSV. I might make a temporary combined superscript where I copy and paste sections of different scripts together. And since the variable names are pretty much all the same, it's not that difficult to do. Finally, since I've been out of time for a little bit, thank you all. Thank you especially to my colleagues who watched me do a rough draft of this talk and gave me some great feedback. This talk is sponsored by Bailey, my dog. And she has mottos that like really inspire me and help me get through life. And her mottos are cause chaos, steal blankets, ask for more treats, and insist on the longer hike. So really all about self-care. So, thank you.
The Slack has been exploding with like OMG and wow, 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 and fantastic. And anyway, yeah, no, that was pretty impressive. Any questions? Oh, come on. Oh, yes.
Hi, where did you start? Because we're all really excited and we're all thinking about our scripts, but if you could like point one way that we might start when we go back and not get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I guess like when I look at my scripts, kind of thinking about like if I were to write out the steps of what they do, like what's the big picture thing they do, and then I like isolated that. So like if the big thing the script does is explode and pivot, then I would kind of isolate that part and have that be a script. Even if like I'm doing other stuff to that CSV, like let's say for instance I had to do a bunch of like regex stuff where I had to like strip white spaces or do other cleanup, like I would do that separately and keep that separate. That way I can keep reusing the explode and pivot and don't have to rewrite it. And then, I don't know, just also be liberal in deleting old stuff. Like for a long time, especially since I was a beginner, each little script was so precious. Like I worked really hard on that. I didn't want to delete it. But like, if I look at something, I don't know what it is, and I know I could write it better now, like it has lived a long life. Rest in peace. So.
Yeah, as somebody pointed out in the Slack, that's very much the good old-fashioned Unix philosophy. It's one task for one thing.
So this question is kind of over here, sorry.
Oh, thank you.
The flip side of that question before, so thinking about this in relation to one of the talks yesterday about like that one brand new notebook that's gonna fix my life. Like I feel like this is gonna fix my life, but how do you keep going? You've been working on this, you said, since like 2021. How do you keep yourself in these good habits?
I kind of don't. Like I fix it. Well, like every few months I'm like, let's check and see how this is doing. And then like I go through and like anything that like, oh, I shouldn't have added this, like I'll go through and delete it. So just give yourself a period. I just give myself a period of time to fix my mistakes while also trying to be as cognizant as possible, not to do those shortcuts where you're like, I'll rename these variables later. Oh my gosh. And then just like forget about it. So like I really try to like make sure like that this is like a golden little notebook of goodness. I didn't mean to quote that novel by Dora Lessinger. Sorry.
I apologize. I just realized that the lectern mic here was turned off. So the thing I said before was, as someone pointed out in the Slack, the partitioning tasks into little scripts is very much the Unix philosophy. And
that is cool because I did not know what that is. Like, don't know what that is. I'll also take questions about my dog. She's like allergic to everything, so she gets freeze-dried minnows, like whole minnows. They're disgusting, but she really likes them, highly recommend. And also garbage she finds on the street that she's not supposed to eat, so. Well, thank you all so much.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and the last power duo is the Dev and Designer Power Duo, Secrets to Seamless Collaboration with Jen Diamond and Axa Liao. Yeah, you can direct it. Sorry.
Thank you. This one on here. Am I on? Oh, good morning. Good afternoon. Are we ready? Yeah. And am I on? Yes. Mic test.
Testing 1, 2. Testing.
Testing.
4, 5.
All right. Remember, candy bar. Candy bar? Not ice cream cone. Not ice cream cone. Hi, I'm Jen Diamond. I work at the UCLA Library as a software developer. And hello, I am Asha Liao. I work at UCLA Library as a user experience designer. We chose to present our talk today as a play to immerse you in a real conversation that we've had across multiple meetings. Through this table reading, you'll get behind the scenes look at how we collaborate and the tools that we use brought to life in a series of short plays that exist just in this moment and will not be performed elsewhere. We're not acting them out, we're just, it's a table read. So here we go. All right, so our friends here, Graham Hukel from MIT will play the narrator. Sarah Hensler from Indiana University will play the designer. Kevin Handeli from Montclair State University will play the new developer and stakeholder, depending on the scene. Nikitas Tampakis from UPenn is going to play the project manager.
Now kindly join us to bring you behind the scenes of our team at UCLA Library. Scene 1, Mission Possible. The team gathers for the virtual kickoff meeting. The project manager sips coffee in LA while the UX designer signs on from NYC, tea in hand. The developer, designer, and stakeholder join the call.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. We have an ambitious project ahead, the complete redesign of the Film and Television Archive website, FTVA for short, even though that's kind of a bit more of a mouthful. Our goal, an accessible, user-friendly site by March 2025.
We have reached the first milestone of the project, which includes stakeholder interviews, user interviews, a deep dive into our analytics, a content audit, and usability testing.
We based our designs on your input, focusing on the goals of the site and the users you wanted to prioritize.
We came up with this design. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
That looks great. Thank you for all the work that you did.
A week later, in a smaller weekly team meeting consisting of the stakeholder and other members who strategically guide the development and improvement of the library's online presence.
I had a chat with the other people from the archive after the UX design presentation. We want to move away from the close association to the physical space of the theater. Let's do something completely different. FTVA never went through a rebranding like we did for the library website. We didn't even consider it before we saw your design. We want the new FTVA site to be closer to the library site, but still be distinct. Can we get rid of the pink and black theme, change the logo, and give it a different look and feel?
Okay, thanks for this feedback. I'm glad we caught this sooner than later.
That would be a complete, total rebrand of the site. We're gonna have to go back to the drawing board.
You know, we will need more time to create a new visual design.
How much time do you think we'll need?
Now, the design is distinct from the UCLA Library website, but it still feels like it's part of the family. We're using the existing design system we built for the UCLA Library as a foundation.
I'm glad that we resolved the design and that we are all on the same page now. Going forward, we need to concentrate on our communication. On our last project, the scope kept increasing bit by bit, which stretched our resources and timelines. We need clear priorities, only what's critical for launch versus what can wait.
Yes, let's remember, you're now part of a larger library ecosystem. Our process is built on iteration. While we may not capture every feature you want right away, we're committed to refining and expanding over time. This isn't a build it, launch it, and forget it for a decade situation. That's not how we work anymore.
Now that we have reached the second project milestone, we can enter phase 4, development. Implementing 16-page templates and ensuring smooth functionality. Each template will be available for stakeholder review after they are completed.
Yeah, we finished the visual design informed by our UX research. We also worked together to figure out our site strategy and information architecture.
We have all the design deliverables for the devs today. Let's review them together so we can be clear about our requirements needed to build the components and page templates.
All our designs and prototypes are in Figma with specifications. Our design tokens package has the new set for FTVA.
We're building this with the same stack as the library's website: View components, Nuxt static framework, and a Craft headless CMS. We upgraded our View components and updated our Nuxt site, and we're ready to go.
The site structure is in Airtable, and I can help with the data modeling in Craft.
Great. We'll structure JIRA with epics for each page template. Now let's discuss our schedules. When we want to meet for stand-ups, weekly updates, design reviews, and retrospectives.
Could we add a chatbot to the homepage?
That is gonna have to wait. That is in the not critical for launch column. I'll document it as a ticket in the would be nice post-launch epic so that your request is not forgotten.
The team nods and gets to work. Scene 2, Hello World. A month later, the team gathers to onboard a new developer. It's relaxed and supportive, with everyone excited to welcome their new teammate.
Welcome aboard. Glad to have you join our team. I want to remind everyone that we have had to adjust the project timeline because of the rebrand. We were also down a developer because of some departmental shifts. This has taught me that I need to be a little flexible and adaptable with the timeline because people leave, people get sick, and there are many unknowns. Needless to say, we are excited to have you help us move this project forward.
Welcome to the team. Let's walk through our day-to-day workflow. Everyone's here so you can see that we all work really closely together. We go through each element we're creating with the entire team, devs, designers, UX, and our stakeholder. We try to be clear and gather all requirements of the design and functionality upfront and agree to the scope. This week, we'll focus on setting up your dev environment and get you familiar with our workflow, and you can tackle your first component.
Thanks. As the new developer, excited to jump in.
Hi, welcome to our team. Our UX designer did a talk recently about the design engineering that they did to help both teams have a single source of truth for the design language and improve developer experience. Here's a link to the team YouTube channel. There you'll find a video of the full talk that you can watch later, but I'll let her summarize the setup.
Hi, glad to have you on the team. So we use Figma for our designs and a design token system to keep things consistent across the board. Our design tokens from Figma export SAS variables developers can use directly. They're published to NPM, and they are ready to drop into View components.
What does that look like?
It's been super useful for our team. We love it. It saves a lot of time, and it keeps things really consistent over multiple projects.
Also, we use Craft as a headless content management system. We grab the data with GraphQL and use Nuxt to generate static pages on the front end. We'll use Elasticsearch for filtering and search features.
Exactly. We built these components using Vue.js, and we display them in Storybook, which is a cool tool that allows us to build, test, and showcase components. Percy runs automated visual regression tests so we know if we unintentionally break something.
So, Figma for designs, an NPM package for design tokens, a Vue component library with a visual library called Storybook, GraphQL for data, and Nuxt for the front end, Percy for visual regression testing, and Cypress for end-to-end testing. Got it. I'm not overwhelmed.
And Slack for communication. Devs meet every day for stand-up to discuss our progress. UX will show up if you have any specific questions.
And don't hesitate to ask questions. We're always available to clarify requirements on Slack or a quick pairing session on Zoom.
Yes, let's communicate early, often, and always.
For commits, we follow conventional commits. There's a recorded session on it. I just dropped into the YouTube, in chat. So watch this when you have a moment. We prefer video content that over compliments pages. So we also try to keep things like deploy instructions and other how-tos in the wiki or the README for every project.
Thanks. So much info, but super helpful. Anything else before I get started?
We pair frequently. Designers and developers create tickets together, clearly documenting templates, components, and page requests so everyone's speaking the same language.
It really helps manage scope and makes collaboration fun. Plus, you can always ping us with questions. We tried going back and forth in Figma comments, but that didn't work for us. Recently, we have been creating component requests in GitHub issues. We can talk about that in more detail later.
Just remember, collaboration is key. Keep us in the loop, ask questions. We try to give as much info as possible up front, but sometimes we do miss details.
You'll want to sync with me if you have any questions while you're working, and then I'll review it once you feel like it's done, so we can sign off on all the visuals and behavior.
Then let me know that you're done, and I can give you a code review and suggest any changes. Once that's all set, we'll run the Percy check and the pull request and merge it into the code.
Good to know. How about handling unexpected changes?
Funny you mentioned that. Remember our early stakeholder check-in when the design was presented, and then they requested a total rebrand?
Oh yeah, good times. Clear, frequent communication saved us. We immediately called it out as scope creep and managed stakeholder expectations of the new timeline, September 2025, and reprioritized tasks.
Exactly. Clear tickets and constant dialogue prevent surprises.
Good to know. See you at stand-up.
With onboarding complete, the team feels more connected and ready to tackle what's ahead. Scene 3, the dynamic duo. With the project moving forward, the team ensures that every page request is well documented. Today, the designer and developer pair up on Zoom to write a page request ticket for the event listing page. They are making sure that it has all the necessary details for smooth development.
Hey, thanks for hopping on. I figured we'd pair on this page request so we can capture all the requirements up front. Ready to review this page request together?
Yep, always better to clarify the requirements together rather than deal with any confusion later. No surprises. Let's go over the page request in GitHub.
This page is used to list events. This is where users will browse public programming at the Film and Television Archive. We want it to be easy to scan, filter, and dive into the details of the films.
Okay, let's start with the basics of the layout and functionality.
All right, let's go through the design from the top and go component by component. So the header sticky component is already implemented. We'll be using that.
There's an existing ticket to fix the header menu behavior, so it overlays correctly instead of pushing down the content. So we'll have to wait on that, but once it's fixed, it will resolve that issue on all of our pages.
Great. And the date filter component, it already exists. So the tab toggle component also exists. This is how we're switching between the list and calendar view. The calendar, though, is a new component that we do need to build.
About the calendar component, does it only show up on the larger screens?
Yes, so on smaller screens, we only show the list view, and the tab toggle component won't appear as an option.
Let's see what that looks like. I have a lot more questions about that calendar component, but they can wait until we make a component request. We can lay out all the details there.
I'd love to get feedback from the whole team to ensure that we're building this in a flexible, adaptable way. That way, we can maximize reusability and proactively prevent technical debt.
Avoiding technical debt might be impossible, but we can always try. Let's move on.
Let's pretend that was this one. Ha 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 ha.
Wait, avoiding technical debt might be impossible, but we can always try.
After a break and many minutes later, oh wait, that's you.
That's
The designers and developer complete the full list of components they will need to build this page.
All right, let's go over the acceptance criteria. One, users can view all events in a calendar view on larger screens. Users can view all events in a responsive grid layout in list view, and on small screen layouts, they shift to a stacked view of events. Is there anything else?
Yeah, when you feel like you are done implementing this page, you can ping me and we'll go through it again together to make sure everything works as expected.
This was super smooth. Thanks for pairing. It's always easier when we write tickets together. It saves us a lot of headaches. All right, I'll start on this and ping you if anything comes up.
With a well-defined ticket, the team ensures clarity and alignment, keeping development efficient and collaboration seamless.
All right, that is the end of our play. This is how we work for real in real life. And so we are very communal and communicative and very California. And so include the main actors in decision-making, manage expectations by communicating early and often. Don't make assumptions, ask lots of questions.
Yeah, we're flexible and adaptable, and we change our process whenever we need to, because change is eventual and teammates change. There are quirks with people and technology. We need to accommodate for external forces like sick leave and caretaking, mental health, and fires.
Yeah, so this works for our team. It might not work for yours.
So thank you to our new and old friends. We asked to participate in the play just yesterday. And
yes, thank you.
Kevin Handel from Montclair State University. Stand up, take a bow. Sarah Hensler from Indiana University. Graham Hukill from MIT Libraries. And Nakitas Tampakas. Nakitas Tampakas. You know, I sang your name like 15 times. From the University of Pennsylvania Library.
All right, and thank you to all of our team members in the past and present. So I will not be saying all these names, but we work with many people.
You work and have worked with many people.
Yes, and we appreciate all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
We'll sign autographs later.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Yeah, a little bit too close to home for some of us, as we have seen in the Slack, which has been playing the role of Stadler and Waldorf. But anyway, any questions? Yes, indeed. Yes, we have a question up there.
Hi, thanks. So I can't speak for everyone here, but I work in an organization that isn't like that just yet. Do you have any advice or experience for how to transition culturally, like an entire org, to move to something that's closer to that kind of model?
Yeah, so we have a boss who basically like restructured everything and the way we all work. And then he hired a bunch of people who also believe in that kind of working and set up teams. There's lots of restructuring involved, as you can imagine. So we are part of 2 different teams. Jen is part of the apps team, and I am part of the UX team. We work very closely together. We also have other teams within the department that we are in that, like, I as a UX person, service and support. But yeah, it's very much a cultural thing. You were there before this shift. What was that like?
When I joined, we just started doing Agile. I came from the Agile world, as did our boss, Josh Gomez, and he brought Agile to the UCLA library, as did Lisa McCauley.
Right, so that was a big part of it. But we do Agile with a small a because it doesn't really work for a lot of the projects that we do. Like, we try to get it fast because we have lots of things to do.
Yeah, we adapt a lot. Like,
there's a lot of adaptability.
We used to do a point system, and point all the tickets, and then we found it wasn't working for us. We felt like we were losing the game constantly, so and doing a lot of work at the same time. So, so we adapted to a Kanban style board, and then we have retrospectives like
Tons
quite
of
often.
retrospectives, and I think that's part of the communication and the adaptability, right? It's like we are always open to hearing how we are failing. So I think that is something that helps us.
Yeah, we talk it out a lot so that we can not get mad at each other and just fume behind the scenes.
Right.
So we take little
And
fumings.
we do fun things like make plays together.
I feel like I should write a math problem.
I'm curious, on our team, we have a character that maybe wasn't or sort of was in this scene, which is like the product owner, product manager. Sort of, we have stakeholders that person also talks to, so I'm curious if you guys have that role and how that role fits into this, or is it gone?
So I do a lot of talking to the stakeholders just because, like by nature, as a UX person, I have to interview them and kind of know what they want and are looking for. But our project manager also interacts with stakeholders in a way where like they provide status updates so that everyone always knows what's going on. But yeah.
There's no like product.
There's the product owner is the stakeholder.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do have them, they hadn't for a while come to the meetings, and we asked them to come to specific meetings because we found that we weren't getting all the information, and so it was slowing down so that we'd have to like go through multiple channels, and it just slowed down our work process. So now they come to a couple different meetings, and it just helps things run way smoother.
Right. The problem with how we had it before was that we would have like meetings with stakeholders, and then it would be like months after that the implementation was ready for them to review, and then they would have so many different opinions. So then we decided to include them like as we are doing the page request, like right before we do that page request ticket. We also have the stakeholder there to remind them like, this is what you agreed to. We are not building anything else.
And to ask questions directly to them, so it's not just the designer guessing. Like we can be like, "Hey, do you really need that to be there, or link, or whatever?"
Right.
And
yeah, because the purpose of that meeting is also like a feasibility thing. It's good to have the stakeholder there who wants something, the pie in the sky thing, the UX person who can try to figure it out, and then the dev who's like, "No.
Ew.
This is too hard. This will take like 5 months to do. Let's not
we
do that."
recently had an issue like that. I was like, "Oh, this thing looks very easy," but we looked at it as devs, and we realized this one little ticket that looked like, "Oh, you just press this little button, just add that little button," and we were like, "This is 3 other tickets and probably at least 2 weeks of work by 2 people." So we
had to reframe.
Adjusted,
Yeah.
and the stakeholder, we told them, and they were all right with it.
Right, and yeah, because we include them in the process, in like multiple phases of the process, they are part of the decision making, and they are very accommodating to like making sure that this thing comes out instead of having to wait another 10 years.
Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned it, but we do have like we mentioned it briefly, but we have like a post-launch list of things, epics that we're going to do when we have time someday.
Yeah, everything is a ticket.
Yeah.
How many projects, like in an ideal world, you'd be working on one project and everyone would be working on one project, but how many projects, what happens when you start having, the pressures to work on 4 different projects, even in a given time period? How do you handle that?
You mean what happens when you live in reality? Yeah, so we tried to do this thing where we said, we explicitly said, let's try to just do one thing at a time. And then fire, not the actual fires, but a work type of thing happened. And it was like a request for this thing, a request for this thing in another project. And I think the way we've managed it is that the apps team has a lead, and then there's 3 other developers. So the other developers were continuing to work, because this is a big project, so we're trying to put as many resources to it as possible. And then the lead developer gets pulled out for these one-offs to try to give everyone what they need, and just like, things are gonna come up. But we also have a really great boss, like Josh will say, my team has to get this done. No, he says no, which I greatly appreciate. Yeah.
We've tried that in the past. We tried switching context between 2 projects every 2 weeks.
Right.
That was a nightmare because it takes so long to switch context developmentally, like brain-wise, that it really didn't work out. And sometimes we, split people off onto, I think we are going to do that soon. We're splitting a few team members off to do some other work. It has sometimes it needs to get done, and you don't know ahead of time.
Yeah, unfortunately, we keep doing these redesign projects, so we don't have time to actually enhance the things that we've already built. So hopefully after this one, we can go to that model, because one of the things that the dev is getting pulled out of is to enhance the search of the site, which we got really horrible feedback about, so we need to fix that.
Hi, Tommy Keswick, Caltech Library. Can you talk a little more about all the project management tools you're using? That when you were doing the onboarding of the new developer, there was a lot coming at that person. How do people handle that stuff in YouTube, stuff in Confluence, stuff in GitHub? Like, how does that work?
We started using GitHub issues a lot. So for every component that we make, we have a component request. And for every page we make, we have a page request, which we kind of showed briefly. So as developers, we go, it has a template. So it has a bare bones thing of what you should be putting in there, of like what it does, dev tips, which can be like the database query for it, things like the styles. We'll meet with the UX and designers and ask them about the behavior and any styles that we need, and we put everything in one document so that we can use that, and then we put links out to the other things, like the YouTube channel. So when we do the big meeting about the individual page, the stakeholders there, I record it on the Zoom, and then I post it to a YouTube channel that I just run, and you could find it if you really want to, but it'd be hard. But that's a super useful tool, because you forget what you said, and the stakeholder forgets what you said, and so you can rewind and be like, aha, see, I told you I didn't say that. Or you could just remind yourself of like, oh yeah, without bothering other people. So
yeah, and the other tooling in like the design and the dev stacks, those are they feel pretty invisible, strangely enough, where I know it's overwhelming, but it's like all part of our workflow, where like Figma is kind of just the only thing that the visual designer touches, and the plugin that spits out the tokens to GitHub.
the Storybook, you guys use that?
Yeah, and like a lot of GitHub Actions kind of do all the things. It was set up like once, and then it's kind of doing its thing. And then the component library is something that the devs actively work on for our components.
So for every component and now page that we make, we write a story for it. So we say like, this component, when it has it's basically a visual library of the components, but it also has functionality within it, so you can press the buttons and do all the things that it does. And so you can say, like, what if this one had a super long title? Is it truncating properly? What if this one has like no image? Is that working? And you could set up all the different use cases for it that you can think of. And that's really helpful because, I don't know, everybody's visual. Everybody can look at that and say, that's broken, right? Not everyone can look at the code and say that's broken. I loved your talk.
Hey, just making sure that was, one quick question. So I heard a lot about stakeholders. How close is your, oh, I thought it was.
Candy bar, sorry.
Sorry, all right, we good? So I heard a lot about stakeholders. How close does the development team, like kind of the whole development team, get to actual end users? Like, do you do full team studies with end users to watch end users interacting with it, or is it always filtered through a stakeholder?
No, it's filtered through UX, but the stakeholders are part of some of these apps meetings to kind of get more, so that we can get more feedback.
We did that one time a long time ago. We had kind of, we played around with showing the stakeholders like our progress. And so one time we had user testing and we got a bunch of people to come and like try different things that we thought they should do. And we didn't have a UX department at the time. So, and then another time we just showed a video of the stuff we had updated. And so we tried different elements at the time. And I would say it was kind of interesting, maybe not useful, but candy bar, personally interesting to see.
Yeah, and so part of the workflow and like communicating to a lot of people is that we like to do presentations. So whenever we have a main stakeholder that we work with very closely, and it's a singular person for this project, specific project, but there are others that we interviewed and that we want feedback from, and at some points we do want engagement with them. So usually we have presentations whenever there's some kind of involvement.
Okay, I think we are at
I think
one more question. Okay, go ahead.
I'll be quick. So you're talking about your presentations with your stakeholders. So I'm so enchanted by this format that you have here where you just put on a play for us to document a workflow. So my curiosity is, what is it like internally working with you guys? Is your documentation like performed when you do these? Like what other ideas do you have? Because I'm all ears.
Yeah, we are.
We do laugh a lot at work.
We laugh a lot at work.
Yeah, we're an all-female dev team, which is rather unusual, right? Having just been to Scale or Southern California Linux Expo, and there being 1 out of 10 humans being anything other than male. So not that that's bad. It's just, it's just feels weird sometimes. But yeah, our team is, we're all really friendly and get along actually as humans. We take time to chat.
And it's also kind of strange because we're all fully remote. So we have managed to make connections even outside of the screen.
Yeah. She lives in New York and I live in LA.
Yeah,
so.
I live in New York, you live in LA.
We were friends before, but we saw each other in human form.
Right, and then, we were like friends, I think. It's like working with friends is how it feels like.
And everybody's very empathetic towards being sick or having children, taking time off, right? Like, that's a big deal. I don't think a lot of places that I've worked aren't like that.
Okay, fantastic. And on that positive note, thank you so much. All right, listen up, folks. We have a whole bunch of announcements. So contrary to the schedule on the website, we will not be reconvening here at 5 p.m. after the breakouts. So all of our end-of-day announcements and all the other announcements are going to be happening right now. So we have afternoon break and poster sessions starting from 3:15 or whenever I get done blabbing here down at the microphone until 4 p.m. Breakout sessions will be from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Lightning Talk signups for tomorrow morning are available on the curved wall by the registration desk. I think they're full. They're full, I am told. Breakout session sign up for oh yeah, okay. Breakout session sign up for tomorrow at 11 a.m. is also available on the same wall. Don't know if that is sold out yet or not. Poster session will begin immediately after the break, 3:15 to 4. Already said that. Poster presenters, be sure to collect your poster before you leave today if you want to keep them. They will not be kept overnight. Breakout logistics. Breakouts will begin at 4 p.m. The sign-up sheet is still hanging on the curved wall to the left of the registration desk. We have listed locations for each of the sessions on the sign-up sheet and on the conference site. The Friends Center 100 rooms are on this floor, so if you go off the top of the lecture hall, that's the floor. The rooms down here on this level are 0 rooms. I believe all of the breakouts are going to be there except for our perennial defending yourself against a dagger-armed brigand in Quattrocento, Italy. That will be happening in the courtyard outside. Although it would be interesting to watch it being done on steps in the lecture hall. Reception logistics. The reception is at the Frick Taylor Commons. I believe that is in the Frick Chemistry Building, if I'm not mistaken. On campus from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Pedestrian entrance is off of Scholar Way, off of Washington Road. You can take Tiger Transit routes 1, 3, and 4 between Nassau Street near the hotels and the venue. Goheen Walk Stop is the closest to Frick. Have you enjoyed your conference experience? Yes. Let's make sure it happens again next year. We are looking for a host for 2026. If you're curious about hosting and would like more information about this amazing opportunity, be sure to join us in the C4L26 breakout this afternoon or sign up for the How to Plan a Code4Lib workshop on Thursday afternoon. There's still room and it's free. Can't make it to the conversation or want more details? A group of past LPCs have been working on documentation for each aspect of the proposal and hosting process, with the plan being to share all documentation before the end of the month. Shout out to Alex Brownstein, Jake Bone, Peter Nowak, Rodrigo Acosta, Dan Kiyu, Maddie Pryor, and the rest of the broadcast crew at AV Services here at Princeton. Yay! We are so grateful for all the work they are doing up in the broadcast booth and around this space to keep things running, including rescuing me from mistakes and all the other MCs. If you are presenting, including lightning talks tomorrow morning, please visit the podium between 8 and 8:45 a.m. to load your presentation onto the computer. Don't forget your badge and lanyard. Tomorrow morning, put it somewhere handy, perhaps in your backpack, so you don't forget to grab it on your way out the door in the morning. And speaking of tomorrow morning, if you are checking out of your hotel, please check your bags there and refrain from bringing suitcases here to Friends Center. As you know, there isn't a lot of extra room in the auditorium, and we do not secure a place to store them. Thank you for joining us today. There will be no more live stream this afternoon. So live stream folks, glad to have you around. See you tomorrow. And the rest of you, break and poster session. Thank you. Oh, one more. If I can find it.
I think we have the thing up. Oh, we just get a...
Oh, on the website, yeah.
Yeah, it's on the website. Stop that. I don't want you to do that thing. Come on. All right. Schedule.